Okay. Well, I just wanted to read our prayer. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe. You have sanctified us through your commandments and commanded us to busy ourselves in things of Torah. Well,
Amen.
I mean, we're sort of we have finished the names of all of the sons and daughter of. Hi, Chris.
I'm so sorry I'm late. Thank
That's
you.
okay. Okay. You've had a good week too?
It was wonderful. Thank you.
Good, good. So we finished when we with all of the names of the sons and daughter of Leah and well, let's put it this way: 3/4 of the sons and of Leah. Of Leah. We haven't gotten into the discussion about Rebecca yet, but well, I'll mention. I was going to mention something later on, but it's okay. Would somebody like to read starting at verse Genesis 30, verse 14? I think that's where we ended last week. Just before.
Yeah, I'd be happy to start.
Thank you, David.
And Reuben went into the days of wheat harvest and found mandrakes in the field and brought them unto his mother Leah. And then Rachel said to Leah, give me, I pray thee, of thy son's mandrakes. And she said unto her, it is a small matter that thou hast taken away my husband. And wouldst thou take away my son's mandrakes also? And Rachel said, therefore, he shall lie with thee tonight for thy son's mandrakes.
Okay, let's stop at this point. Any comments that anyone? Yes, Larry, you zipped up that hand.
Okay, this is from Friedman. He says, mandrakes, this flowering plant has been believed to have medicinal or magical properties. It is supposed to look like a small human being with exaggerated sexual features and to serve as an aphrodisiac with magical powers to produce conception. So that's why mandrake was.
I was wondering.
Yeah.
Well, hey, Betty, hi.
How are you, everybody?
Okay, Betty, good seeing you.
Nice to see everybody. Keep well. Thanks God everybody's is okay. Thanks God for that.
Yes.
Yes,
Thank you. Yeah.
And you too.
Okay.
So I have a question to, oh yes, David, you wanted to.
Yeah, it's interesting because I find here in my little magic book a quote from John Donne. And he says, go and catch a falling star, get with child a mandrake root. Tell me where all past years are, or who cleft the devil's foot. Teach me to hear mermaids singing, or to keep off envy's singing, and find what wind serves to advance an honest mind. I don't know if he got the mandrake from Genesis, but it's there in this poem.
Anyone remember the old comic strip, Mandrake the Magician?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah, he was sort of a wizard.
Uh-huh.
Okay, he was involved in magic and things like that, and a detective too. But it's interesting that it wasn't only, oh yes, Chris.
Well, I am getting here the idea that it's been so very difficult for Rachel and Leah to become sisters again. It looks like she's keep holding on to that resentment over Rachel about the love of her husband. So to something was supposed to be a blessing. Yes, we did inherit our trust from them, but it's so hard. The forgiveness is not anywhere in the picture for neither one of the two.
Okay,
14.
it's a good one. Any other comments?
Yes, my secondary Bible calls it a Dudaim, D-U-D-A-I-M. So let's see. It says the incident of the Dudaim is one of the most puzzling in the Torah. What were they? Why were they so important to Rachel, Leah, and Reuben? Why does the Torah relate to the puzzling episode? Regarding other verses, it is axiomatic that human intelligence is capable of only a superficial understanding of God's word. Regarding the verses, it's obvious beyond doubt that the episode is filled with the mysteries of the Torah. So, what Odunim, they suggest many possible translations of this word. Jasmine, violets, mandrakes, baskets of figs, induced fertility, everything you said. But I never heard that word before. I never noticed that word before.
With the Hebrew word, the Dudaim.
Dudaim.
Oh, that's the doing. Okay, got it. Yeah.
Yes,
What
Rabbi.
I wonder is why did Reuben give them to Leah?
Yeah.
If it's an
Or
aphrodisiac,
actually doesn't say that he gave them to Leah. It says he brought them to Leah. Now, had she
Right.
asked for them? Was what initiated that gesture?
Oh,
I think there's a lot of midrash written about this.
yeah, this goes on.
That's implied that Reuben may have done so cohabiting himself
yeah.
with his,
Mine asks why a child as young as Reuben would probably not want more siblings in the household. So why is he, trying to put his mother, to have more siblings? He put his mother's happiness ahead of his own, and I'm just glancing through what I have here. Did we get up to Rachel asking for the plant? No. That's the next
Oh,
part.
that's interesting.
Yeah, that's in 15. Oh, too many. I need my desk.
As Marty says, I mean, the midrash, or whether it's classical or whether it's our own contemporary, can be fascinated with that. What was Reuben's motivation?
Yeah.
Hey, Mom, what are these? Or, Mom, I saw some of these on your bedroom table, your bedside table. What is this for?
Uh-huh.
Or can we share these with Auntie Rachel because she doesn't have any children, or whatever.
Does Reuben understand what the purpose of that plant was?
Well, I don't think he's in the conversation much more after this.
okay. How old would Reuben be at this point?
Well, my midrash said that he was a young child. That's all it said. Didn't say exactly.
Roughly how old?
Didn't say.
Well, it's after
Well, figure out how many brothers does he have?
so probably a preteen or a teenager.
Either a preteen or a teenager.
Maybe he sampled the stuff himself.
So you can see how the midrash can go. The mandrake is interesting. Also, it was an emetic, so if you took too much of it, you really had some problems with it too. It's apparently it's still available in some foreign pharmacies. You can get that in the Orient especially. Yes, Chris.
Yes, and I thought she was done with these things. In the past, we talked about what she said. She took the stand and she says, that's it. So it surprised me that now she is considering again. Maybe Jacob had something to say about that. On the
Well, we'll
mandrake.
get there. We'll get there. We'll get there, Chris,
Okay.
very shortly. But
All right.
any other ideas about the mandrakes? It was not only found in among who were these families. It was throughout the Middle East and also lots of other cultures in the area, including the Greeks, commented about it and used it. So it was fairly common. And it was already mentioned about how it was important to, the structure. I think Larry mentioned about what the appearance of the root of the plant. So I just find it interesting. Remember, these ladies have come from a family where they worship idols.
Okay.
Now they sometimes mention this is a gift from, the children are a gift from God. But then if they truly believed in that, I'm going to go out on a limb here. If they truly believe that, why would they go along with a superstition, believing that the mandrake had power? Yes, Mary, would you want to comment on that? And then Helene. Mary, you're muted.
Marty?
It's sum up. I think that oh, she had the haircut.
Hey, wait, Marty,
Anyway,
wait, excuse me 1 second. Ricky, you are now the host. So, because we're at a casino, we're going to go do gambling for $5. So I'm getting off. So Ricky, you're the host. At the end, you'll just end for everybody. And I'll see everybody next week.
You give me.
Okay?
I don't know.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Have
Good
fun.
luck.
We will.
Okay. So Mary, as you were saying, and then Helene.
well, the first thing I want to say is what you said, Martin. Marty, we were connected with the other cultures, and we were superstitious as well. We had all kinds of superstitions, and I'm talking about Judaism, and we still have. I won't mention them because it might upset some people, but superstitions are. And, am connected with birth after the baby is born. Some people hang garlic and some people do all kinds of things. So in my mind, these are superstitions. The second thing I want to say is that in modern Hebrew, we translate dudaim as figs, as someone mentioned there. And there was a couple of singers, Yoram Gaon and Benny Amdursky, that they call themselves dudaim. And the third thing that I might say is my allusion to Hannah. Hannah prays for a child, and she says to her husband that she wants a child. And he says to her, I love you so much, isn't that enough for you? And here, Yaakov is angry that she asks for that. So anyway, I cannot not think about other stuff connected, but thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, Helene, and then Rabbi.
The only thing I can say is that it would be fascinating to know if the teenage years were in every culture. Did this arise during the teenage years, or did it come earlier in the life of the child? Because teenagers live sexual. That's what they do. They
Right.
invent it. That's when they and so it's not surprising to me that the root of the mandrake somehow is in some superstitions, or what you want to call them, for teenage years. So I don't think there's an answer to this, but does anybody know if the approximate age that all this happens in different cultures, or ours, or what?
Well, we have at least in Judaism, we have the rite of the
11,
bar mitzvah.
right, 11 years
Okay.
old. Yeah.
So I don't, I have to defer your question to the rabbis or anyone else who may know the answer to that question. In our ancient background, how old would it be that a teenager would be thought of as a man in ancient times?
Well, it's anachronistic to try to impose that on the Torah.
Right,
But
right.
but once you get to Talmudic, the rabbinic period, then you're talking of the 13 of the age of majority.
Right.
Right.
But we really have no way of knowing. We can try
Yeah.
to speculate on the age of Reuben or any of the boys at this point, or for that matter, for of Dina when she has her encounters later on. Also, and I just want to say, Miri brought out that there is the etymological root connection with the Dudaim, with the singers and whatever. But there's also, and Steve isn't here to be able to look up in his etymological dictionary, but there is a connection, a loose connection with the Dudaim, the mandrakes, and having some kind of a aphrodisiac or whatever, because you remember the phrase "Dodi li," my beloved is mine. So Dodi and Duda, and there's at least an alliterative connection, if not the actual source connection of the word.
Right.
Yeah, I thought about that.
Can people hear me? This is Steve.
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, yes, Steve.
This is Steve. I'm sort of coming in on Sunet's window. I had a little bit of a problem, but to the best of my knowledge, I sort of came in on the end of the discussion, but,
Okay, but
I think you're talking about the mandrake. Is that right?
Yes.
And
Steve, but I put you on hold for a second because some other people had their hands up already. I don't know if you have a screen in front of you, but I know Suzanne wanted to say something, and Larry, and then
I just wanted to quickly insert that the mandrake in a lot of cultures has supposedly fertility properties. So that's kind of a known thing. I'll look it up later on my natural medicine database. Sorry for the interruption.
It's okay, Steve, but would you also look up the root word? Because I believe love, the word for love, is also part of the that discussion. So if you would, when you have that, I'm going to see if do you have the ability to still raise your hand, so since I don't have a visual of you.
Oh.
Suzanne wanted.
Yes, Suzanne, and then Larry.
Okay. Excuse me. I just wanted to comment. I think it was Reuben was the one who relations with his with one of the
Goodbye. Yeah, one of the
uh,
stepmother. No.
yeah, right.
No,
Yeah.
it's a servant. Was the servant of Leah.
Leia, right. And I was just wondering if the mandrakes didn't have something to do with that.
I don't know. I don't know.
Why don't we ever talk about women drakes? Never, just only mandrakes. What is it?
The women don't need it.
Rabbi, are you feeling it, Rabbi? The heat?
Because we're
Hello,
nearly
it's Steve
perfect.
again. It's Steve again. I'm sorry for the interruption. Could somebody just tell me where we are? Chapter and verse. So I
Genesis,
can find the right place.
Genesis 30,
30, 14 and 15.
verses 14 and 15.
30, okay.
And now, Larry, you wanted to say something.
Okay, earlier we were told, be fruitful and multiply. Your
Amen.
offspring will be as numerous as stars in the heaven. If that's the case, why do you need aphrodisiacs? And why are there women who have such difficulty conceiving?
Good question.
It's all in the genes.
Oh,
And I'll let you interpret that as you will, Larry. Anyway, Mary, Rabbi Mary.
Yeah, the issue of conceiving is again something that comes across all the stories. Even in the fairy tales, you're going to find it. It's a theme. It's a theme like saying, you know, there were 3 brothers and the youngest one was.
Something happened to Mary.
Froze, yeah.
It froze. It may be bandwidth or something. Well, while Mary is trying to get back online,
Joanne wanted to say something too.
Joanne, you had
Okay.
something.
Yeah, I lost my place, but hang on. The question, I'm in Wikipedia. And it says, why does Rachel want Leah's mandrakes? In Hebrew, the word is dudaim, D-U-D-A-I-M, whose etymology might suggest a connection with dodim, D-O-D-I-M, sexual love. Therefore, it has been speculated eating mandrakes was thought to aid desire or fertility, and Rachel, barren till then, wanted them so she could conceive. So I've been trying to figure out, where do mandrakes grow? Do they grow in a watery area?
Why did you ask?
Yeah. I hadn't thought of that part. I've been reading all the other stuff.
You want some mandrakes and I get a boy toy.
Marty.
We were getting too serious with regard to mandrakes. Anyway, I have no idea
Can
where
you
they
make another
grow.
comment on a mandrake?
Okay, okay, so let me get Steve. I don't think he has a, oh, here he has.
Oh,
a screen.
there you are.
There you are.
Okay, sorry, I wasn't able to put my hand up, but yeah, indeed, you suggested that I look it up in the etymological
Yeah.
dictionary,
we were
and
just
the
discussing that.
etymological dictionary does support that it may come from dod, is, you know, in modern Hebrew, it's uncle, but it can also mean beloved, you know,
Mhm.
and so dudah is the mandrake in Hebrew, so possibly related to that. It's a love plant.
Right. And it goes by that.
I'm afraid I have a glare on my screen. I don't want to annoy people, so that's why I'm shutting off my video.
No,
okay, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
It's a window.
Okay, that's good. So Chris, you wanted to add something?
Yes, and no, I just have a question. Seems like it was such a powerful portion to make any woman have child. I wonder what is Rachel waiting until now to figure that out, or to hear about it, or to inquire. I am sure that probably they had doctors back then and he could try. Yes, Rabbi.
Yes,
I'm
Ray.
curious.
Well,
Okay.
I'll jump in with a couple of things, two of them related. Larry had mentioned the thing connecting it to be fruitful and multiply and
Yes.
whatever. Some of the mitzvot, of which that is the very first, some of the mitzvot, there's certainly the acceptance that not everyone was going to be able to fulfill those mitzvot for one reason or another. Doesn't mean that you shouldn't try, but not every, they understood that not everyone would succeed in fulfilling and being judged, so to speak, according to your participation in or with those mitzvot. So it wasn't a value judgment necessarily. And also, this is long before the concept of the mitzvot coming from God and putting it into that category. Okay.
Right.
Secondly, then with Joanne, and then what Chris was asking, time-wise, the only thing that we know is that this is during the wheat harvest festival. And the one commentary that I have down here is that the mandrakes became much more visible. They grew much more, opportunistically when the wheat was being harvested. So maybe they were hidden underneath the high, whatever the word is, the growths of the wheat. And then when they were in the threshing and when they were collected, the mandrakes became available. And again, then here's Reuben saying, "Look, Mom, look what I found! Look what I found! Look what I found!" Whether or not he knows what their power supposedly was.
Okay, thank you.
The question about how a society gets around some of the issues of being barren, a woman being barren, will come up in our discussion very shortly. So, because this is not only a custom that we see in our Torah, it's something that was very common in the Middle East. Yes, Joanne, again, yes.
I keep thinking mandrakes grow where it's wet. And my first thing in my little Wikipedia again says, the plant grows in areas around the Mediterranean and Middle East where it has been used as a hallucinogenic, painkiller, aphrodisiac, and a fertility drug for thousands of years. And then I ask about America. There is an American mandrake. It is a small herb with long perennial creeping rhizomes, a native of many parts of North America, common in the eastern United States and Canada, growing there profusely in wet meadows and in damp open woods. So my feeling of it grew in wetlands was correct because I haven't seen the Mediterranean ones. So.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Any other comments before we move on?
Marty?
There is a,
Marty?
yes, go ahead, Steve. Yes.
Yeah, I have a comment. Yeah, I just looked it up. I just looked up mandrake in database natural medicines. That's sort of reviewed by pharmacists with an interest. And it says European mandrake root is used orally as an emetic, purgative, sedative, anesthetic, painkiller, and aphrodisiac. It has also been used orally for treating stomach ulcers, colic, asthma, hay fever, convulsions, rheumatism, and whooping cough. Doesn't mean it works for all this. Yeah.
Wow.
What do they say about effectiveness? Let's see. Just interesting. They just say basically, very cautiously, their usual type of expression is there is insufficient reliable information available about the effectiveness of European mandrake. So that's from mandrake from the perspective of a natural medicine or herbal medicine.
Okay. So do they, no, I won't bring it up. I guess no studies have ever really been done to see if it works or like, you know,
Yeah,
Hindi
that
or
they
anything.
just sort of said insufficient evidence, which
Right.
means either there aren't studies or the studies aren't really satisfactory.
Okay. Any other? Oh,
They-
yes, Joanne.
Okay. They do use, I'm back to Wikipedia, they do use the mandrake, and I'm going to spell it, etoposide, Etoposide, and it's it's a derivative anyway. It's known as VP16. This epidofilatoxin is used in SCLC and NSCLC, among many others. Most of the published trials utilize infusional eptoposide, which has the mandrake in it, but an oral formulation is available as well. So they are using it, but
Yeah.
they use it in another, with something else. So,
But in other words,
This is
mandrakes are
intriguing.
available today.
Okay. Yes, Helene.
But what I'm hearing is it's not specifically for sexuality. It can be for
Right.
any number of problems, and
Medical. Mhm.
there, you know, people take all kinds of herbs, including me, for various things that work rather than as a serious infusions that you get in a hospital. Some of them work, and it's the individual nature, the individual person, and the genetic structure that determines whether they work or not. We can't generalize.
Okay.
Do they grow it in a pot?
Okay. We're not here to discuss the
Mandrake.
different medicinal uses of it. We wanted to focus on what about it from the standpoint of Torah. So any other comments? Nobody spoke about sibling rivalry.
I did.
You briefly, do you want to expand on that? Because this is like two sisters. They are envious of each other, but at the same time, they like to help each other. It's like a love-hate relationship. Do you want to expand on that, Chris?
Well, I don't really see that there's much love. It seems like it's a constant competition for the man in their lives. If one does one thing, the other one gets upset. What it really bothers me is the unforgiveness that lives in their lives by compromising their relationship with God and with Jacob. But I just don't know how can Jacob be perfect either. He was in really hot water there to start with, because he knew he loved Rachel more than anything, and the other one just had to get. So, but they never came to a conclusion of, okay, let's be a family, let's do this thing right, which I don't know that it's the right way to live a man with two women. We women are very possessive in some ways. We just want them to be ours and no one else's. It's just part of the deal. So, but it does surprise me that the unforgiveness that goes on, at least for 7 children or something like that, in the process, and that nobody is able to do anything, not even Jacob. But Jacob had his own issues with Esau. So just he's not confronted with it yet.
Okay, well, that's coming up too, Chris. That's going to come up hopefully towards the end of our session today, if we get to it. But So should we read on? Verse 16. Here comes poor Jacob after the women have conspired.
The coach, separate the women.
David, why don't you continue reading for us?
Yeah, 16. And Jacob came from the field in the evening, and Leah went out to meet him. And she said, Thou must come in unto me, for I have surely hired thee with my son's mandrakes. And he lay with her that night.
Okay, let's any comments about this at this point?
Well, am I? Okay.
Yeah, okay, I'll do Ricky, then Chris.
I mean, mine says, you are to sleep with me, for I have hired you with my son's mandrake. I mean, that's an unusual way to phrase this.
Right.
Well, what has happened? She had to get them, okay, from Reuben.
Right.
To bargain with her,
through Leah.
Hire her husband just to sleep with her.
So maybe instead of hiring, maybe you can say, I've obtained them from, for this purpose.
Well,
and I will lure you as a result. Yes, Rabbi, I think you wanted to chime in.
Well, there's again, you have to look specifically at the Hebrew. There are two, there are more than two, but two specific statements that come out of the Hebrew. Kisachor scharticha. It's on the one hand, there's a doubling of the verb, okay, which we usually translate as I have assuredly, I certainly, there's more than just I've hired you. I've definitely, it's a doubling of the word. So the rabbis and the critics would say that there's something to, you really need to understand that this was a business deal. Okay, kind of thing, because the word is doubling. The other interpretation is it's doubled because both Reuben and Leah are involved. Okay, so and now whether that means that Reuben actually got some money, was compensated for it, as well as Leah's compensation of sleeping with Jacob and getting more than one child, more than one son. But whatever. That's how they explain the fact that the Hebrew word is doubled.
Okay.
There to draw extra attention to it.
Okay. Okay, I think did somebody else had their hand up, I thought, too.
I did.
Yes, Chris. The pictures jumped around.
Yeah, I know. It's just playing musical chairs here with us.
Yeah.
I'm going back again to the rivalry, the persistence rivalry. You have him, now I want him. And I want him tonight, so I have something that I can hold on under his head, like something that will attract him to come to me. And so it's really painful to see these two women fighting for the one person they love, because they obviously loved him.
Jacob didn't object.
When you receive something, if you're bargaining, let's say without the exchange of money,
right?
But you're bargaining with someone to receive, in this case, the mandrakes,
right?
And what is the barter? What is the other half of the barter?
Well, if you don't barter,
Jacob.
money.
Okay.
So yeah, right.
Okay.
Right.
So maybe that's why they're using the word hire in this regard.
Okay.
I have, I have bartered for this. I'm not sure. I don't know the word in Hebrew to what the implications would be. But if but hiring, purchasing, borrowing, trading,
Right.
maybe that's what it's implying. Yes, Rabbi.
There's also the fact that the next son that is born, Issachar, and that's also from the same word as hire. It's the same Hebrew word. So it could be foreshadowing, and then that's why they draw attention to it. But that's a literary analysis rather than anything else.
Okay. Thank you. Any other discussion here? Okay, let's read on verse 17. Whoever would like to read.
Okay, I can continue.
Okay.
And God hearkened unto Leah, and she conceived and bore Jacob a fifth son. And Leah said, God had given me my hire, because I gave my handsmaid to my husband. And she called his name Issachar. And Leah conceived again and bore a sixth son to Jacob.
Those are
And
powerful mandrakes.
And Leah said, God had endowed me with a good dowry. Now will my husband dwell with me, because I have borne him 6 sons.
Okay. And that's why he's named Zebulun. Do you want to finish up with 21?
Sure. And afterwards she bore a daughter and called her name Dinah.
Okay.
And God
Okay, let's stop at this point. Any other comments about this at this point?
I have a question here. May I?
Sure.
Okay. What is this here? God has given me the reward for having my maid to my husband. So Issachar is Silpa's child. Is that correct?
No, it's Leah.
Oh, no, but she gave her maidservant to her husband.
Previously.
That is her servant, which she happens to be Bilhah. No, Bilhah is
Bilhah, yeah.
Bilhah, yeah. So all this mandrake deal ended up being no good because the maid was the one that laid with Jacob. Am I getting this right?
No, Leah giving permission for Jacob to sleep with Bilhah happens earlier.
Right.
It's not related. It's not related to these children who are being born right now.
I'm sorry, Rabbi, I didn't hear you.
It's not related. In this particular, it has nothing to do with the birth of these particular children.
Well, I think, Chris, you bring up an interesting point. Because Leah says, God has given me my reward for
having
my maid to my husband.
Right. So she named him Issachar. So yes, it is Leah's child because Bilhah is her maidservant. But all this mandrake thing was not even good for Leah. It was for the maid.
No.
Am I reading this right?
No, you're combining two different aspects of the story only because they happen to come one sentence after another.
Okay, so
okay? We're done with the mandrakes.
Okay.
Okay, so she's now she didn't use the mandrakes. Rachel was the one who got the mandrakes.
One of them, right?
Okay, so Leah is now, when she's choosing a name for her next son, she's
Okay.
reverting back, and she said it has nothing to do with the Mandrake story
Okay,
whatsoever.
I got it.
Okay. Yes, Mary, Rabbi Mary.
Well, the issue with the word sachar that this that we see here, sachar, today it means your salary, how much you get from a work. And what Leah is claiming, hey, look what I gave you. I gave you my children, I gave you my maid's children. That's where she mentions Zilpah. Not that Zilpah gave, but in the past, I gave you all this. I paid, like I paid for you all these things. Therefore, something needs to happen. She is bragging about how many kids she has given him.
Right.
Therefore, she wants the love and she wants the acceptance, and she thought that she's going to go above Rachel because of all these things that she had given to Yaakov.
Okay, very good. Yeah, okay. David and then Joanne.
Actually, Wendy.
Thank you,
Okay.
Mary.
All right. Now, this is not David, and you can't see me because I'm off camera, but I'm going to go back to something current, well, fairly current days. I don't know if any of you have ever seen the movie The Color Purple, where the character Whoopi Goldberg played was taken as Danny Glover's wife because her sister, who he really wanted, was too young. And he used the Whoopi Goldberg character more like a slave and a concubine. If he needed sex, he had his sex with her, but it was never lovemaking. The only person he wanted was a sister or the other women that he knew. So maybe that's the kind of thing that Jacob is just not a nice man. And at the end of the movie, the Whoopi Goldberg character actually laid a curse on her quote husband and said, if you don't do right by me, you will never be good again. And he had to fulfill the curse. So I don't know if this really is parallel, but the more I hear you all speaking about how he hired her, that I really think it's a comparison of the movie characters with the Bible. Anyway, that's my take on it because I am not a biblical scholar. There you go.
Oh, thank you, Wendy. Thank you. Very good. Yes, Joanne.
Okay. When I'm reading on in verse 8, it says, Rachel said, a faithful contest I waged with my sister. Yes, and I have prevailed. And then she named him Nephthaliah. That was Rachel. But anyway, I waged with my sister. In other words, they're waging there. And then later, Leah is saying, I have hired you. So the competition, maybe it was just baking a cake or something, but there's total competition between the two of them.
Absolutely.
What I'm reading.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
So let's read on. Okay, 22, verse 22.
Okay, and God remembered Rachel. God's finally remembered Rachel, and God hearkened to her and opened her womb. And she conceived and bore a son, and said, God hath taken away my reproach. And she called his name Joseph, saying, the Lord add to me another son. And it came to pass, when Rachel had borne Joseph, that Jacob said unto Laban, send me away, that I may go unto mine own place.
Okay, before we get to that, David, are there any comments that anyone wants to make about Rachel at this point? Conceiving Joseph, conceiving and bearing Joseph.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
It says here, Because of Joseph, the Lord has, or God has added another son for me. Is she considering the other sons hers too? Like Leah's children? Because she said another son. Well, this is her first one.
Right.
So what should he say another instead of my son? Right? So, and it
Okay.
says for me, not for Jacob. I'm sorry, I probably looking too close in the lines, but it's kind of strange that she will say another son for me.
Okay.
Well,
Rabbi?
She conceives and bears a son and then prays to God for another one.
Yeah, she says, she asked the Lord to add to me another son.
Oh, okay, got it. I got it. I missed that part. May the Lord add
It's
another
okay.
son for me. Okay, forgive me. It's all good. It's all good. Thank you.
well, I want to defend Chris a little bit. Okay. As David said, that it looked that she asks son, or she asks God, or she prays to God. That's an English interpretation in the translation. That's not what the Hebrew says. Okay.
Oh,
All right. So the Hebrew, and again, in understanding the Hebrew of the Torah, you need to recognize that there are different rules for the grammar and tenses. So words that appear in a future tense may actually be understood in a past tense and vice versa. Sometimes it's extremely confusing. So verse 24 actually is the I don't want to say correct translation, but the translation most likely would be, she called his name Yosef or Joseph, saying that Adonai added for me another son. Or again, because of the question of whether you should interpret a future verb in the past or the past were in the, that's in the future. Yosef is in the future tense. So the question is she saying, may God grant me another one? Or is she thanking God for having granted this son? Now, and acher for other or another doesn't necessarily mean for her. It could mean another son into the clan.
Okay.
Okay.
That's what I was thinking.
So
yeah.
again, it can be, we're adding our own interpretation because of, with our translations.
Okay. Thank you, Rabbi.
Any comments about Joseph's name?
It's a beautiful name.
Oh, okay, Joanne, you have your hand up first.
Okay, when I read this, add another son, she's going to claim her maid's sons as her own. So when I quickly read it or something, add another son, she's counting the maid's sons now along with Joseph. So I'm going in that direction more than, she wants another son. It's almost like a double thing here. I want another son, but thank you for the sons I have, which would include the maid's sons. So that's it.
Okay. Rabbi, you had your hand up?
Right. Well, when we're at the end of this, I want to completely turn things around. So
okay,
when we're at the end of the discussion or questions about this phrase, then I'm going to throw you for a loop.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay.
Oh, I have a comment.
Yes, Steve.
If I may. Yeah, just a little footnote to the rabbi's comment about how future is sometimes used as past and so on. Sometimes they use a mechanism in the Bible which is called vav ha'ipuch, where which also often gets mistranslated as and, but it's not really and, it's really a vav that's making it more clear that that future tense that's being used is really a
Is
past
a past.
tense. It means what it means literally, vav hipuch means the reversal of. So it's turning a future tense into a past tense. And what they, at the beginning of the sentence, it does say vayikra, so you could understand that the vav is sort of exerting its influence over the entire sentence and making it more clear that it is indeed a past tense and not a future. So sorry about my verbosity there.
No, it's okay.
That's a grammatician's analogy.
Any other comments of this? Any comments about the name Joseph? Okay. Yes, Ricky.
This switching of tenses, you can tell a true, real, born and bred New Yorker who will say, yesterday I go to the store. That's that mixed tense is, that they say in the present tense what happened in the past.
Yesterday I go to
And
the
that is
store.
such a New Yorkism that's the deadest giveaway. So yesterday, my sister came to visit me. My sister comes to visit me. Means it really did happen yesterday, even though they're speaking in the present tense. So that mixing of tenses doesn't bother me at all. I'll put it that way.
Okay. Okay, I'll mention it again. Any comments about the name Joseph?
I have a question, Marty.
Oh, okay. Okay. Suzanne, yes.
What does Joseph mean in Hebrew?
That's exactly what
It
made
means,
the Lord.
like the rabbi said. Yeah, it means adding. It comes from
Adding, additional.
The root is asaf, which is to add or to collect, to collect. So in the yud in Joseph, which becomes a J in the English translation, is just the little letter that makes it future tense. That's all. It's
Okay.
Third person singular.
Yes. Third person. Didn't want to make it too
He will
complicated.
add. He will be included.
Okay.
He will collect.
Oh, okay. I guess I missed that somehow. Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. And then, but Asaf, I have a commentary here that says Asaf, a translation of that has taken away.
Yeah, it's one. There are,
And the concept of taking away her
My
affliction.
disgrace. Exactly. You're right.
Taken away.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
No, I know you use that. I know. And then.
No, I'll use it up.
May he add.
I'll look it up.
So I'm a little confused because nobody said anything about Asaf taking away the affliction. And I just don't know enough about the etymology that I have to ask a question this way.
Well, Marty, when I said I was going to throw everyone for a loop, that is one of the. So don't say that no one was going to mention it because you just didn't get there yet.
Okay.
You know what, Marty?
Yes, Steve.
This is a comment on your comment, if I may.
Please.
The predominant meaning of Asaf is indeed gather, but it can mean taken away, as in taken away to your ancestors by death. Okay,
Right.
It means collected, or it like the old translations of the Bible will often say he was collected unto his ancestors.
Aaron Asaf el Amad. Aaron was gathered to his ancestors.
So it's still really gathering, but it's being gathering to the dead relatives. So so it's being taken away essentially.
Right.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay.
Don't go on. I want.
Oh, you,
I have to throw
okay,
everybody
we're
for a
ready
loop.
for you, Rabbi.
Ready for
We're
you,
ready.
Okay.
Rabbi.
All right. So
Open
the
to sound.
there's another possibility. Okay. The other possibility is that there's a scribal error here in the Torah. Okay. Which in some phrases, in some places in the Torah, the scribes, the Sophrim, have made a very, very, very conscious point of enlarging a letter so that we don't make a mistake. For example, the last word in the Shema is what? What's the last word in the Shema?
Echad.
Echad with a
Right.
daled, right?
Right.
Okay, means one. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God. The Lord is one. You've got to make absolutely sure that you don't mistake the daled for a resh,
Okay.
which would mean God is another, or God is acher, God is some other, God is different.
Okay.
It wouldn't mean God is one. Okay, it's the same letter here. Okay, all right. That there's a possibility that it was a scribal error. That what Rachel actually said was Yosef Adonai li ben echad. That God has now given me, God has added my first, like in Bereshit, in the Genesis story, Vayhi erev vayhi voker yom echad.
That
Okay,
was my question.
you know, one day, the first day kind of thing. So there is
Right.
there is the possibility that that's what she was saying. And the scribes, however, like I was saying before, that they interpreted differently with a translation, that they were interpreting it differently with a scribal change.
Very
So
interesting.
take your
Thank
choice.
you, Rabbi.
Take your pick.
That is interesting.
Thank you so much.
Rabbi. No,
Yeah.
I'm just curious about your comment. If I may ask, is that something that occurred to you, or is that sort of a drosh that's that's there?
Steve, I don't remember. Today was not the first time that I pointed it out, but I don't know. I don't know if I should take credit for it or if I had learned it from something else.
No,
I don't remember.
I'll tell you why I'm asking. Not to be a nudnik or a pain or anything, but I'm just wondering if the Dalet and the Resh, they can be confused in modern block Hebrew lettering, but if the same room for confusion existed in the older, styles of script.
Well, in the script of the Torah, yes, it's very easy to confuse them.
I don't.
Yeah. It's very easy.
I don't remember if
letters.
Dalet has
in
this
the
little
in the scribal calligraphy, for example, a chet is two vavs that are connected, and if the connecting top isn't, it falls out a little bit, some people will read that as two vavs rather than as a chet. So it is some. There are occasions when there have been those mistakes noted.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Chris, you had your hand up.
Yes, and I want to ask this to Rabbi because that little note, as you put it, could be either or. I like the or your version better than what is written here, but it just gives Rachel, from my side, from my view, a level of spirituality that Leah is not into it. When she is bringing that echad into the naming of Joseph, because that is definitely a God turn for unity, for the one, for we are all one. And if she understood that, I think that definitely Rachel was more connected with God. And I'm just taking that word from it to decide that she was closer to God in some way, that Leah was more of a competition kind of a person, and I want him and you cannot have him, and that kind of thing. Rachel seemed to be more at peace. We hear more about Leah because she's having children and all of this, while Rachel is sitting in the corner, they're waiting until God hears her prayer. So that was like, can you give me a comment about that? Can you say something about it? Did I?
Well, the comment that comes into mind is, and I don't remember, it's in the Hasidic literature. I don't remember which rabbi is the one who points it out, that Yosef's name here is the first one that's associated so closely with the Yud Hey Vav Hey, with the Tetragrammaton, you know, with the, okay. And Joseph is the first one in the patriarchal narrative who's called a tzaddik, who's called a saint, as it were, a righteous one or a saint. The only time that we've seen someone, you know, before that is Noah, you know, who has that characteristic. There's something else that I wanted.
Yehuda.
Pardon me?
Yehuda.
Yehuda is
Right.
Yud Hey.
Yud has the name Yud Hey Vav Hey in it.
Yeah,
yes.
Right.
Right. Which the same thing is that they say that, like I say, it's one of the Hasidic Rebbes, I don't remember which one, that did a whole thing with all of the names. So Yehuda, which is Judaism, you're a good Jew only if you have Adonai within you, you know, kind of thing. And here, and he does that kind of teaching. The other thing, for those who are tuned into what they call the documentary hypothesis, that there's the E and the J and the JE and the P and the D sources of all of the literature. If you look just at this one paragraph at verses 22, 23, and 24,
right,
you have apparently, if you were a believer in the documentary hypothesis that it come from two different authors or schools of thought, you have part of the paragraph is in the E source, of the Elohim, that this is God doing something, but then Rachel is the one who uses Adonai.
Right.
Okay, so does that mean that in their day the terms were interchangeable, or is it an overlay from a later on author, narrator? You know, whatever.
Thank
Just
you
curious.
so much.
Very
Thank
good.
you so
Yes,
much.
Ricky.
Well, you're usually asking me, so I figured I'd come up with the answer first. Which Sephiroth, you know, is Joseph affiliated with? And he's Yesod, or foundation.
Yesod.
Right.
Yesod,
Yesod.
Foundational.
That's right.
So, you know, I knew, you know, eventually you were going to ask me, since you were talking about reading. I figured I'd give you the answer.
Okay. Any other discussion? Oh, yes, Rabbi Murray.
I just, you know, if you're interested, and if you have the translation of Elliot Friedman, he wrote a book, Who Wrote the Torah? And in that one, he talks about the issue of Adonai and Elohim. That's quite interesting.
Thank you.
I will. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Shall we go on, move on? Oh, yes, Ricky. Yes, Ricky.
I'm just grabbed another paragraph about Yesod, the Sephirah. The organ of the body associated, because you're also associated with parts of the body, with Yesod is the penis or phallus, which is appropriate when one considers that the essence of Yesod is the ability to make connections. So here we are back with the mandrake. So just throw that in.
That's a twofer. Anyway, any other discussion? So why don't we read on? What for 25?
25 or 25.
Get back to this book. My desk.
Anyone want to read?
Yeah, I will read.
Okay, David, thank you.
No one else wants to read, so I will volunteer.
Go ahead.
Verse 24. And she called his name Joseph, saying, the Lord add to me another son. And it came to pass, when Rachel had borne Joseph, that Jacob said unto Laban, send me away that I may go unto mine own place and to my country. Give me my wives and my children, for whom I have served thee, and let me go. For thou knowest my service, wherewith I have served thee. And Laban said unto him, if now I have found favor in thine eyes, I have observed the signs, and the Lord has blessed me for thy sake. And he said, okay, and he said, appoint me thy wages, and I will give it. And he said unto him, thou knowest how I have served thee, and how thy cattle have fared with me. For it was little which thou hadst before I came, and it hath increased abundantly. And the Lord hath blessed thee whithersoever I turned. And now when shall I provide for my own house also?
So you want to stop at that point, and why don't we start discussing it? Any comments? Steve. You muted Steve.
I'm unmuted
Okay.
now. But one thing that the Hertz commentary points out is something we might you might slip by or not notice is he says at the beginning, give me my wives. And you could stop for a minute and say, hey, isn't that obvious? Would he leave without his wives? And theoretically, you know, that we know in the South, families were separated. And that was extreme slavery, of course. This was moderate slavery, but it's still slavery. And so, you know, if you're a servant, you know, your master, if he's not very nice, could let you go, but not necessarily give you your family to go with you. Because
okay,
they're all theoretically owned by him. Again, and this is sort of not informal, but sort of a more casual type of servitude, but it's still servitude. So,
okay, very good point. Chris, somebody else had their hand up, I thought.
I did, but I changed my mind.
Okay, Joanne, and I apologize, Joanne, you had your hand up before too.
Not to when I'm looking at this, it was supposed to work 7 more years.
Yeah.
And we were saying Reuben had to be a teenager, so he may more than even the 10 years people said he usually worked as a servant.
Right.
So he may be already have worked for 16 years or so. We don't quite know. That's my comment.
Okay. Okay, took us back a little bit. Any other comments about what we have just read?
Yeah, and also,
and any comments about, you know, why all of a sudden this? Oh yes, I'm sorry, Ricky.
This back and forth bugs me. I mean, if I take a job, you know, I know, or at some point, maybe the boss, the employer says, well, what are you looking for? Or I, as the prospective employee, will say, what are the wages? But they're like throwing this back and forth that, you know, well, let's see, name the wages due from me and I will pay you. And then he says, and you know darn well how well I served you, you know, so they couldn't, I mean, I know they eventually do work out a deal, but it just bugs me that nobody came right out and said, okay, this is what you earned, or the other way, this is what I think I was worth. You know, nobody made the statement. Each of the guys threw it to the other one.
Okay. That's a very good point. Yes, Suzanne.
Okay.
I find it interesting that before Jacob met up with Laban, that Laban apparently was not a prosperous man, because in verse 30 it says, for it was little which thou had before I came.
Right.
And now with Jacob there, Laban became wealthy.
Okay.
Follow the money. Follow the money.
Yeah.
Right.
I guess initially I had thought that Laban was fairly well-to-do, but apparently not. I mean, he is now, but not originally.
Right.
Well, maybe he was of reasonable means and now has become wealthy because of all of the sheep that he now owns.
Right.
Well, yeah, it's all because of Jacob.
Yes, and so Jacob is saying, but I have done this for you. This is, what about saying, what dowry did Jacob bring for the two wives?
He brings for one.
Mary, you're muted.
Oh, David has had his hand up.
Okay, first David and then Mary.
Yeah, Dr. Hertz found it necessary to emphasize here that Jacob was feeling really pretty upset over the years at the way that Laban had outwitted him over the matter of Rachel versus Leah. And he determines to put to good use his exceptional knowledge and skill as a shepherd. So I would say that was the dowry, was his years of service as a shepherd.
Yes, that's what I was getting after. So he's saying, I have done this for so many years. How many years has it been now?
Well,
he's 14.
So far.
More than 14.
More than 14 because of the kids. So he's saying, hey guy, it's about time. I have my own life. I've reasonably paid you back for the wives and the servants. Okay. And now I want to get on with my life. Is that a fair way of putting it? Rabbi Mary.
And one of the things that Rashi talks about is that become richer is not just in sheep and animals and gold, but with sons. So if he takes the sons of Laban, that's a real loss to Laban. And according to this Stone translation says that he wanted to make Yaakov being guilty, that he's taking away all that he's putting Laban to bankruptcy by taking everything that it has. But what's interesting to look at it is that part of the accumulation of wealth is how many children you have, especially sons. The daughter, well, whatever.
Okay. Any further comments? Okay.
I just have to jump in, Marty. Pardon me.
Yes, please, Rabbi.
I have to excuse myself. I just want to wish everybody a Shabbat Shalom. And we'll see you next week, if not before.
Thank you.
Thanks,
You too.
Rabbi. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Any further comments at this point about about the discussion now that's taking place that's about to take place between Jacob and Laban. Well, let's see how this discussion unfolds. So David, if you would like to read on.
Okay, verse 32. I will pass through all thy flock today, removing from thence every speckled and spotted one, and every dark one among the sheep, and the spotted and speckled among the goats, and of such shall be my hire. So shall my righteousness witness against me hereafter, when thou shalt come to look over the hire that is before thee. Every one that is not speckled and spotted among the goats, and dark among the sheep, that have found with me shall be counted stolen.
Okay, you want to finish with verse 34?
Sure. Verse 34, and Laban said, behold, would it might be according to thy word. And
Okay. And so let's discuss all of this. So what is going on here? And I'm going to raise a question in a bit related to this. What wages now are being discussed?
Livestock.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what about it?
Well, it looks like the pure white sheep and the pure white whatevers are the more valuable. He's leaving those with Laban, and he's taking all the second, the lower grade animal, the ones with the spots and the streaks and the thises and the that's. And the dark colored ones are not the prime.
Okay, so Laban would get the white ones and the
speckled ones.
No, not the speckled.
Yeah, the speckled ones he gets. Laban keeps all
What about what about black goats?
Black sheep?
Black sheep.
Well, he gets the dark colored ones.
No, he gets the solid color one.
Okay. So first, Rabbi Mary, then I'm going to call on Chris and then Steve in that order. Okay. So Rabbi Mary?
Well, sorry. In my mind, this is the beginning of genetics. What Yaakov has done is, how do you say, to cruise, to
breed, mix.
To breed all kind of different animals and creating a larger herd. Because he knew how to do it. And I suspect that those that he's taking with the spots and those are the breeding, those that have the force and the power to create more than the others. When I read this in the past, I was just stunned about genetics in the Torah.
Yeah, it is. It's animal husbandry, and this is very important to understand that genetic research is only a faster way of doing things today than was done over time in years past, and it has its roots, and I use the word roots because it was also being done with plants. If you have wheat is a grass, and certain grasses produce better seeds, grain, that you could consume. And so you find this as an example for grass. There is a particular strain of grass, I always call it, the seeds come out that look like a flag off to the side. You see it in New Mexico, Arizona, in the desert, and like that, and sometimes you'll see one or two of these flags coming off with seeds. In East Africa, their wheat has 3 of those flags coming off, and to show the different strains in grass. And wheat is another strain of grass, but we grow it. Barley is another strain of grass.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so yeah, this is very important to know. So the people already knew about this,
Right.
and now we're learning, and we will read on it in the next few lines how this comes to Jacob. So it is a very important component here, Mary. Yes. Any other comments? Yeah. Okay, Chris, you have your hand. Oh, I forgot the sequence. Was it Chris and then Steve, or Steve and then Chris?
Chris, you said, and then me. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Steve.
So it's me? Okay.
Yeah.
Again, I would like to say that I like the way Jacob thinks, because not only did he plan it this way, but he is trying to figure out how crazy his father-in-law is, and he's trying to avoid conflict. He's trying to avoid deception. He is trying to avoid everything that is not really 100% right, so that it will not be anything between them when they break through. And I think that's amazing that he really says, well, I got the the 14 years that I have to give this guy, but that's all he's going to get from me. So, the way that they do this, to me, seems like God has spoken to him, and he says, this is the right way to do this thing. And he proceeds with God's blessing instead of a God's curse or disappointment or whatever. That was my remark.
And so as we read on, we're going to see how Jacob does this. But Steve, before we get to that, why don't, Steve, you say something? You've had your hand up for a long time.
Steve, wake up.
Steve?
Yeah. No, I don't need to be woken up. I'm awake. Yeah, I'm waiting my turn. That's all. The commentary here says that the sheep in Syria are white and the goats black. So Jacob is bending over backwards to give Laban a good deal. And
Right.
the narrative sort of emphasizes, that Jacob is kind of a good guy versus Laban, who is a little grabby. And I also wanted to comment, because that is obviously a very good deal, because the minority are going to be speckled. So he's saying, you give me the smaller share. I'm not going to take the big share. I'm taking the smaller share from the flock. Now, as far as the comment about genetics, actually, and this is a little later in the text, it appears that they're actually going by the sort of older Lamarckian theory of how traits are passed along. Not exactly Lamarckian, but sort of an older perspective of how traits are inherited. That it used to be thought that you could influence a pregnant mother in some way. If the mother craved strawberries, the baby would have a strawberry mark on its forehead.
Yep.
Things like that. So later on in the text, and this is mentioned, and I know Marty doesn't like us to jump ahead, but I will jump ahead a little bit. This placing of the rods over the pregnant, livestock in order to make them give birth to streaked lambs. That's sort of an older perspective, because nowadays we know it doesn't work like that. It does work by genes that are, not influenced by what you're doing to the pregnant mother.
Steve, I don't want to take away any steam here. what you say is true, but I think we're going to find out that there is a little bit more genetics involved in this. And
Yep.
and I want and I think Don had his hand up, and Chris and Suzanne. I'm going to let the three of you battle out. Don, I know, had his hand up first. Don, you're muted.
He's frozen.
Go ahead, Don.
Okay, yeah, just a real quick comment. There is some very recent research that makes Lamarckian inheritance valid again. So experimental stuff can be passed on genetically. And I'll shut up with that.
Okay. Chris and Suzanne, both of you had hands up about the same time. So I'll let the two of you, who wants to go first?
Suzanne, you want to go first?
I just wanted to, thank you, Chris. I just wanted to say that to me, this shows that Jacob has learned something about being upfront and honorable in his dealings from when his mother, Rebecca, had him deceive his father.
Mhm.
I think this shows real growth and learning. And
Yes, yes, that's a good point. Good point. And Chris?
Yes, I was we're reading a metaphysical book where they talked about a person that was raising sheep and cattle. They prepared the ground with poplar trees. The cattle was white. I mean, the sheep was white. And after they conceived, they became spotless because that's what they saw on the ground. And in somewhat, maybe it's more than genes, as Marty said, might have something to play with what you see and what you eat and how you perceive things, how you look at,
Good point.
something or another. And it appears that the animals respond to that. I'm not sure how much of that is, true, but I do believe our mind is very strong and it can change some of our way of thinking. But that was my comment.
Good point. Any other discussion at this point? Because I know we've sort of jumped ahead several paragraphs, and but I think the authors have a reason for separating this out as a separate part of the discussion. So one thing I wanted to mention. Maybe somebody would like to bring up the word Laban and the white sheep.
Well, Laban is, as we've said before, it's white.
Yes. So this, and anybody want to make any comments about Laban's or Laban's use of divination?
Divination.
Nobody has commented about that.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Any comments about that?
I think we'd like to have one from you, Marty.
Well, one of the things that it is not Laban. He mentions things about God, but he still is resorting to divination as if he's trying to prove it.
Okay.
Suppose, and it doesn't say how he's going to go about it, but whether it's stones, okay, or anything, but he values that judgment above what God has already told him. Yes, Rabbi Mary.
Well, in Hebrew, the word is nihashti. It doesn't talk about divination. Is that what the translation? Yeah. It was some kind of force. Nihashti is, okay. I just guessed that that's going to happen. It's more into the human realm than something that's godly.
Okay. That's what I
Okay.
thought.
Good point.
Where does that appear? Which
That's in verse 27.
in verse 27 is
He
the
says, I
Nachash?
have learned by divination that the Lord has blessed me on your account.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, my version
I could
says
look
by
up the,
experience.
Well, we have to remember
Um,
that Laban was an idol worshiper. His daughters were.
may I?
So I'm sorry, Steve. Yeah.
Go ahead,
No.
Steve.
No, I just want a moment to look up the word because this sounds like a word that might be interesting. The
Sure.
Nichashti, as Miri pointed out very correctly, is I guessed in modern Hebrew, but it also has the same root as Nahash, which is serpent. So maybe there is some origin here. It'll take me a minute to look up though. I'd like to look up Nahash and see what the root really means. Zion Het. Nahash. Okay. Yeah. Nahash. Okay. These are sort of etymological origins. Okay. It is actually some of these old Semitic languages to practice divination. Aramaic and Syriac, he divined. He learned by omens. In Arabic, Nachusa can mean was unlucky. And what else
That's
do we
enough.
have here? Divination, enchantment, and of course, Nachash is a snake. That's what the serpent in the Garden of Eden was called. And Hebrew was Nachash.
So
And
ugly or Nahash.
It doesn't make you a snake if you're using divination, but I think possibly one of the mechanisms that were used was some sort of utilization of snakes, perhaps. I'm going to guess, because there were a lot of oddball things that were used as omens and divination. The serpent was used as, had medical powers, but perhaps there were also predictive powers in the snake. I don't know. That would take more research. Nachshon. We remember Nachshon, who dared to be the first one to go into the Red Sea. Yeah, as it parted, was somebody named Nachshon, who was the daring pioneer. So that's another use of the word. Nechosha, the same root. Again, it would take some thinking to figure out the connection between all these roots. Sometimes it isn't always that obvious, but Nachshoni can be daring or adventurous also.
And Nechoshet, you have Nechoshet is
That's
copper.
right. That's right. Yeah.
Is what, Mary? I'm sorry. I missed that on my computer. It didn't come through.
Nechoshet from the same root means copper, C-O-P-P-E-R.
Oh, copper.
So it doesn't matter. He just guessed, or he was told by one of his gods that that's was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But sometimes based on some sort of utilization of omens, apparently, or because divination is not just being inspired and coming up with something, but usually the diviner has to have some sort of instrument, be it little tea leaves or cues or something.
Yeah.
Okay. We will discuss this when we discuss Exodus. We will come back to
Aha,
this.
that's in there, right?
Okay.
I remember this.
Now,
Okay. Ricky, did you have your hand
no,
up?
I just said, when we discuss Exodus, that's 2 years
Oh,
from now.
I know, but it'll come up again.
If we're lucky.
If we're lucky. If we think of it. It is interesting, and I wanted to bring this up about astrology at this point before we get into the rest of the discussion. Why would first I'm going to ask the question: why are black sheep considered very favorable to have? And they will describe them as goats.
No, I'm
'Cause
sorry.
they're
Well, I
unique.
didn't catch the whole question. Could you
Okay,
repeat the question?
black sheep were frequently called goat or goat-like. It was well, there is a specific answer, and that they were given better qualities that were they were better omens.
Aha.
Okay, because the goat was because they had that ability related to goats. Our discussion about goats may also come up later on when we discuss two goats.
Okay.
So, and I also wanted to bring up astrology. In our temple, one of our congregants, and I apologize, I don't remember who it was, made a beautiful tile piece of tile artwork, and he attributes signs of the zodiac to the different tribes. We've discussed this before, and you'll find this in literature. But he only describes the 12 tribes. But if you count up all of the
horoscope,
all of the names of all of the children, it's not just 12 men, it's 12 men and 1 woman.
Right.
So the signs of the zodiac are 12.
Right.
And the signs of the tribes in Judaism are 12, and each one is conveyed as there is some sense of astrology. And Ricky would understand this Kabbalistically. That's one of the reasons why the rabbis frowned on understanding of the Kabbalah, because it brought in a sort of a process of divination. And Ricky, you may have more information on that.
Well, I really want to get back to your black sheep. You just never, I've been waving at you, but.
I'm sorry, I apologize. Sometimes my eyes didn't see it. I apologize.
I wanted to, but anyway, on the black sheep, you're saying that's good, or that was a positive omen or whatever. Then how come the black sheep of the family is,
not a good thing. Right.
If somebody is a black sheep of their family.
Not necessarily. That's when someone's a black sheep of the family, it could be that they're going off in a different direction, not necessarily in a negative direction.
True. Okay.
Okay. Good point, Michael.
Yes.
Excellent point.
Black sheep, have you any wool? The black sheep is more than just.
And yes, by golly.
By gosh and by golly.
3 bags full.
3 bags full.
Okay. So it's important. Yes, Chris.
No, I
didn't. Okay. But here,
David, a little lady down the lane or something.
I have to. Now I want to shift over to David. We have 12 signs of the in astrology.
Right.
Okay, and David, could you say something about the ecliptic and the 12 or 13 constellations that make up the ecliptic.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Marty. The ecliptic was originally an astrological concept,
Yes.
but it has become very important in astronomy as being the plane upon which the planets orbit the sun. And it amazes me as much as astronomers now just curse astrology with good reason because it's still practiced, that if it weren't for the work of the astrologers in ancient times, we would not be anywhere near where we are now in our
That's right.
understanding of the cosmos. But just last night, any one of us going outside would be able to see Jupiter, Saturn, the moon, and Mars all on a line, and that line is the ecliptic.
Right.
Mm.
Excellent, excellent. Steve, before I say something, Steve, you go ahead.
Yeah, I just want on the point you made about the astrological connection. We wish each other Mazel Tov or Mazal Tov, mistranslated as good or congratulations or meaning good luck. It really means literally it means a good
fortune
sign.
Yep.
And those 12 symbols, a good sign. A good sign is in an astrological sign.
Yes.
A positive sign, because those 12 symbols of the tribes that have this sort of astrological consultation, in Hebrew, they're called mazalot, which is the plural of mazel, which isn't luck. It's a sign. It's an astrological sign. So it's sort of, when you congratulate somebody, you're really telling him, boy, you were under a good sign today. Things look like they're happening.
Wow.
The one wishes somebody lots of mazel. I heard that expression, Steve.
Well, that's
lots
sort
of mazel.
Yeah. Well, that's sort of an elaboration on the sort of misunderstanding or slight change in the meaning in the original meaning, because it's come to mean, you have a lot of mazel, you have a lot of luck, but it really meant sign. So what you're really saying is, you have a lot of sign.
Mm.
Okay. Rabbi Mary.
Well, I just quickly, at one point, which I don't remember when, we are commanded not to worship mazalot, stars and kochavim. That's a really no.
Mm-hmm.
So it's we might be there, but and there were mazalot, so we are not allowed to worship, but we can believe.
I'm going to have to go back to David I have a question for him. We talk of 12 signs in the zodiac, each one represented by a particular constellation. Isn't there one missing? There are actually 13 constellations.
I believe Capricornus might have been the missing one, although I'm not entirely sure about that. What I did want to say, however, jumping off this somewhat embarrassing question, because I'm not really sure which is the missing extra constellation, but I gave a lecture at the Shar Shemayim in Montreal, the fall of 1994, right after our comet collided with Jupiter. There were two rabbis in the audience, and one of them suggested that the ancient Hebrews loved astrology not for its religious connotations, but because it was fun and they enjoyed it. And it was like an avocation for them. And I think that's a very nice way of looking at it. I've always liked that. But I wish I knew what the extra constellation was.
Well, there is a missing constellation, and I apologize. We were talking about everything, and it's escaped my mind. I'll have to bring it in next week to you. But trust me,
I will volunteer to do that.
And that would correspond to Dina.
Yeah.
If you go by, if you go
idea.
by that, and
But
we
she's
can
not
discuss,
considered.
excuse me, Mary?
She's not considered and she won't have a tribe. She is nothing.
Yeah.
And she disappears,
Yeah.
just
Yeah,
like
well,
that
that's-
extra
After she
constellation.
married this other guy, the one that is not allowed.
Well, now you have these other discussions, that's
Yeah.
right. But just dealing with astrology and astronomy, it becomes a very interesting
Yes,
discussion,
very much
because
so.
you will see this on the internet, the relationship between the tribes and astrology and signs and
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah, Steve, I have to ask you a
Saying it's
question,
not
Steve.
allowed?
And when
Okay,
you
Chris,
say
hold
there's a
it
lot
for a
of,
sec.
when there's a lot of sign, what do you mean by there's a lot of sign? And when you say mazel, it doesn't mean that, it means you have a lot of sign. So what do you
No.
mean by sign?
No, what I was trying to say was that there are original meanings of a term and they enter the usage, the popular usage, and then the meaning changes. I wasn't trying to diss your use of the language, okay? No, it's absolutely correct. But now when we say a muzzle, or you could, that's a completely legitimate phrase, but it is a little bit of a change from the original meaning of the word. Like words have an original meaning and they enter the language, and then the usage and meaning changes a little bit. So what was originally meaning signs, like signs of the zodiac, became luck and became an expression for congratulations because, that's what people were used to, They weren't necessarily really into astrology, all of them.
Okay, first, Chris, you had your hand up first, and
I
then
had an
Suzanne.
answer. I had
Oh,
a
Ricky, you too. Okay.
No, I had a question, but Steve's explanation was so interesting that I forgot my question. So,
Okay.
pass.
Okay. Let me go to Ricky. And then I'll go to Suzanne. Go ahead.
It's just real fast that Dina as the 13th zodiac is so typical of the male-oriented whole shtick that the one female, who's mother of us all, without whom there wouldn't have been all those boys, anyway, then they push her off to the side. That's all.
Okay. Okay. Suzanne, you wanted to say something.
Yeah. I think it was a psalm, but I'm not 100% sure. But certainly these words, the heavens declared the glory of God, and the firmament shows his handiwork. So I think that it seems to
It
me
is a song.
that that there was a story that or message that God had, and since there was a time when people did not have books or anything like that, the story could be told through the stars. I mean, so people could pass it along. They could teach their children to look up at the sky and learn what God had to say. So I guess my point is that what started out as something good became what's the word I want? Twisted or convoluted or turned into something negative, because there's nothing positive about astrology as
Okay.
we know it today.
Okay, first, David.
Yeah, first of all, I need to give you all refunds because I was wrong about Capricornus. The 13th sign is Ophiuchus, the serpent bearer.
Yes.
Ophiuchus.
Yeah, which one?
Thank you.
Can you repeat,
Ophiuchus.
David?
Ophiuchus, the serpent bearer.
Oh, wow.
And it's a big, big constellation, but it's only partly in the ecliptic, and it's considered the 13th sign. Ophiuchus.
Thank you, David.
Ophiuchus. And you all get your money back.
Okay, Rabbi Mary.
Okay, just before I leave, I would like to ask all of you to vote and to vote for the right person. We won't call names, but please go and do it. Thank you so much for being here and allowing me to join you. Thank you, Ricky.
Thank you. Thank you for your contribution today, Rabbi. It is, we're past our time, and Ricky is going to sign us off because before we go on further.
To chat for a minute, I'll leave it up. I'll sit here for a couple minutes. Otherwise, I just kick you all off.
Okay.
Are you saying
Okay,
goodbye,
Don,
Donna?
you're going to have the last word, Don. You're going to
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
I don't know if Donna is
Don.
waving goodbye or
remember to close the recording or stop the recording.
Oh, I don't think she started the recording on this.
Oh, no, it is recording. I can see that
recording.
it's recording.
You
You
can
have
see
to
it
stop
recording.
it. Yes, yes. You have to stop it.
Where do I oh, I see. Wait a minute, security down there?
Wait a minute.
No. I think it's something that you see on the person running it.
Okay,
It's like other.
Before you do anything, Don had something to say.
Before we close out, I'm just looking for some guidance on a previous discussion. I don't want a discussion here, just somebody point me in the right direction. I've been reading heavily into the Akida for months now, and I'm kind of stuck on when, after Abraham negotiated with God to intervene in Sodom, it was only 15 years later that Isaac was taken for sacrifice. And yet, after Abraham's public defender performance for Sodom, he didn't try to negotiate at all with his own son, Isaac. And I just wondered if there's any literature or discussion that I can refer to on that.
I'm going to ask you to ask the rabbis next week, because they would probably have a better source. I only have the commentaries in the books that I have here.
Okay.
One is the commentaries written by Rabbi Plout, and the other by Rabbi Sforno. And Steve has Rabbi Hertz, and David has Rabbi Hertz, I believe. And you've mentioned other rabbis. There may be a source that the rabbis know that would be even more specific to answer your question.
Okay.
Okay.
Found the stop recording, so that last bit is the end.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Well, anyway, why don't